This is Bass Case. I'm your host, Philippe Ball. Welcome to Bass Case 006, Using Blues Heads and Licks. And this is a culmination of episodes 4 and 5. As promised, I'm going to put together multiple choruses of those heads and licks that I played for you in episodes 4 and 5. And number 4, I introduced blues heads, melodies, and I showed you particular heads over blues form, just your basic 12-bar blues form, those heads that I knew well, and in particular that they fit well on the bass neck, either whether you're an upright player or electric player, or like a lot of us both. And I mentioned that blues heads were a good source of solo language. That idea was sparked by a musician that visited us in school, and we had a combo, and they would have guest artists that were touring, and they'd drop by and listen to us. And the one thing I took away from this saxophonist is that, and he said that he listened to a solo. He says, "You guys need to learn more heads." And he went into a nice exposition that heads were where a lot of solo language was, and it was a really good way to step yourself into learning how to solo over a blues. And if you remember in episode 5, I played through 5 blues licks, and they were all 4 measures long and would fit anywhere on the 3 lines of the blues form. Either the first 4 bars or the second 4 bars or the third 4 bars. And you could plug them in. That was my Mike Steinell, my improv teacher at North Texas. He was so fond of saying, plug them in or fire them off, and you could fire those off. And at the end of that episode 5, I promised that the next episode would be an amalgamation, what an academic term, a mix of those licks and heads to form a solo over the blues. And I did it in kind of an academic fashion. I went through and wrote out and played and figured out what fit well with what. Even though I'm used to playing them a lot, I wanted to put them, I'm also used to playing a lot of other ideas, so I had to kind of constrict myself to these heads and licks that I've showed you. So I put together 3 choruses, 3 times through blues form that uses only the licks and heads, but I mix them together. And I'm going to run through these in this episode, chorus by chorus, at a slow tempo, and overlay how I constructed this solo. And that's a slow tempo initially with these 3 choruses. When you hear them, they're just going to be at about 100 on the metronome. And then, after I get through that, you'll hear how I tracked them all 3 choruses at one time at a brighter tempo, at 150, which is kind of like your typical, or somewhat typical tempo you'd hear blues in. You can play exactly what I've played, which is not a bad idea if you're starting out constructing solos. You can create your own using those licks and heads. You can mix some of my ideas with some of your construction. But play around with it. The idea, moreover, than anything else, is that, and I'm always saying this, I don't know, every semester I'm going to say it 1,000 times to my players in the combo class, get these heads and licks under your fingers, meaning that don't constantly be using the sheet to remind yourself. They should be second nature to you. So here we go. Here is chorus 1. And I just start off with Bag's groove. And it's going to line into lick number 1. Okay, here's line 2. Blues 7 by Sonny. Going into lick number 2. Now here's lick number 5. Going into Sunny Moon for 2 for the back end. Okay, so you saw that there's a mixture of heads and licks in here, and they work pretty well. I particularly like the one at the turnback right there with using lick number 5 with the Sunny Moon for 2, the back end of that. Okay, so here's chorus number 2, and it's going to start off with lick number 3. And it's going to answer back with Parker's Now's the Time. C Jam Blues. More of the Sunny Moon for 2 back in. You can repeat yourself. More Sunny Moon for 2, but the front end. And And then there's lick number 4. Okay, now notice something that I said, that you can repeat yourself. If you've got an idea and it fits on your fingers and you can throw it out there, something that I read that Kenny Warner said once was that that's the idea to use. Don't be afraid of overusing your ideas. If that's the one that you have, that's probably the one that's going to fit, and that's probably the one that's going to be more swinging. Okay, now here's chorus number 3. I take a augmented version of lick number 1, and just check out how I play this. So here's chorus number 3. Nice. Now here's blues 7. Still more blues 7. For this last line, blues 7, and then I go into a now's the time, and then there's the requisite walking that should end practically every bass solo. Now that's something to think about for bass players, because no other instrument does that. You know, you listen to a saxophonist, and you know, I'm kind of like, when I'm playing in a combo setting, a quintet setting, and I'm listening to solos, I'm keeping an eye on them, not just with my ears, but with my eyes, to see where their solo ends. Bass players are the only ones that walk out of their solos. And it's such a really defining moment, because you can really tell more than anything when that bass solo is ending. They just walk right out of here. So you hear dee doo ba boo ba doo 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 ba da dee ba doo da da, and then the next soloist can take it, or the drum solo can happen right there. So those are the 3 choruses and an analysis of those 3 choruses line by line. Now right here, I'm going to play all 3 choruses at one time at a much brighter tempo at 150, and I might do a little talking, or I might just have you listen to this. Now's the time. C-Jam Blues. Sunny Moon for 2. Morphing into lick number 4. Here's that augmented lick number 1. Blues 7. Walking right out of your solo. Nice, compact, easy to understand. Phrasing is perfect for that. Everybody knows where the bass player is in his solo, which soloing, you know, just let me say something real quick. For bass players, soloing can be the most difficult part of a combo experience, because the bass player drops out. You know, there's not that space in there where you're hearing that walking line or that bossa accompaniment. Now, for my next episode, and I've got 2 more episodes where I'm going to focus on the blues, but the next one is going to be requisite bass lines over blues tunes that you as a bass player need to know. These are tunes like All Blues or Equinox, where you can't groove or walk. You've got to play this specific bass line that fits at least over the head, and sometimes it fits over the solos. So I'm going to be going through over a few of those. Episode 8, which I think is going to end this foray into the blues, is going to be over blues shuffle, and then the different blues shuffles that are out there, jazz and of the typical blues form that we think of, like Stevie Ray. So I'll be looking for you real soon. Thanks for listening.